everybody, and welcome to episode 22 of the Bao Podcast. Today we welcome Ismaël Ben-Al-Lal, a visionary entrepreneur and innovator who made a name for himself in the world of renewable energy. After he finished his studies at Groep T at the University of Leuven, Ismaël went on to found his own company, Futech, in 2008. Later on, he started another company named iLumen, and both companies work around sustainable energy. In addition to this, he's an investor and consultant. This way, he can share his expertise and insights on sustainable energy and the importance of entrepreneurship in driving positive change. I'm very happy to welcome this very interesting person. So without further ado, welcome Ismaël. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much for the interesting intro. And the sun is shining, so I'm doing very well today.
Wonderful. Yeah, indeed. After a couple of weeks of very bad weather, it's starting to change. So I think we all welcome that. Ismaël, usually we have like a little course we follow during the interview, and we have the tendency to start at the very beginning. So maybe if you could explain a bit to the listeners how your entrepreneurial story started and where you come from and so on.
Yeah. So I think my story mainly starts actually when I was I went studying in Leuven as an engineer. For me, studying was something that was mostly actually pushed by my parents. So I didn't really see the goal of it at that moment. But when I was in third year, I heard about a project. The project is called the World Solar Challenge, and actually it's a race in Australia where 42 universities all over the world race against each other. And the race is actually very easy. You have to design a car that drives from Darwin to Adelaide, from the north to the south, with just one highway, the Stuart Highway, 3,024 kilometers. And you have to drive with your own built car between normal traffic. But traffic in Australia, you have road trains, you have really big trucks there. So that's already a challenge. Second challenge is, the only fuel you can use is the fuel from the sun. So solar energy has to provide energy to your car to drive it from Darwin to Adelaide. And one of the biggest challenges, you also have to find sponsors, partners that pay for all of that. So that's when I was part of the second solar team in Belgium, where me together with 14 other students decided to stop studying actually for 1 year. And we invested our time in building that car, designing that car, together with more than 130 partners in Belgium, where we work together to be able to also build it and realize it. That's actually also where I have seen that there is a lot of knowledge in Belgium about a lot of things, aerodynamics, also mechanical structures, but also renewable energy, batteries. Actually there are a lot of high-tech facilities here. And we've built that car. We became second in the World's Solar Challenge there. And for me, that was really an eye-opener, because we managed to drive in 2007 through the desert, through the Stuart Highway, at an average speed of almost 100 kilometers an hour. So that was when I came back to Belgium together with my colleagues, and you started talking with people. There was just solar market was just starting, people starting talking about photovoltaic solar panels, that they don't work and it's impossible and we will never drive electric and because it's not possible. And we just drove with only solar energy, 100 kilometers an hour, 3,000 kilometers.
How many people were in the car? One?
So you have different classes. We are in the Challenger class, and that's actually there. It's really the case to demonstrate the technology, and there you can only sit with one person in the car, but in a normal seat angle. So the previous the race already exists since 1985. so almost 40 years actually. And in the beginning, people used to lie in the solar car to have as less as possible frontal area to reduce the drag. But now the regulations is you have to be able to sit comfortable in the car. But for example, you also have the adventure class, you have different classes. And the adventure class, for example, that's a class where the University of Eindhoven also always participates, and they build cars where you're able to sit with 4 people in the car to demonstrate that. And you may probably already heard, for example, from Lightyear, which is also Dutch.
I know the founders.
Actually, they're also ex-Solar Team members that built the Stella, which was the first 4-seater of Eindhoven. So you have different classes there, but the goal is to demonstrate new technologies that you typically see after 10, 15 years also arising in automotive. So we call it a little bit the Formula One, but then in the renewable part. So that was for me surely an eye-opener. A second project that we also did as a student, so it's always a non-profit organization where we try to stimulate young people to work with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but also to show people what's possible with renewable energy. Second non-profit organization is less famous, but it's called Formula Zero, where we decided to build actually a go-kart, electrical go-kart. It was also a race in 4 places, 4 cities in the world, against other universities, but the kart had to be driven by hydrogen, so that it had a hydrogen fuel cell. That was in 2008. There we became world champion with that kart. And then actually afterwards, me and one of my colleagues, who was also a student, Peter, we decided to found, because all the people were talking about renewable energy, but nothing was happening. So we quickly had a baseline. So we said, stop talking, start acting. And the company name was Futech, and stands for Future Technology. So we wanted to be able to bring new technologies, renewable energy to people, and actually with 2 goals. So it has to be renewable, but it also has to be on a total lifetime cheaper than the way we buy or make electricity today. And that's why the main focus in the beginning was actually mainly solar energy.
Okay, whoa, that's a lot. I'm thinking where we go from there. So while you were studying, you stopped. You had a gap year actually, and then you did the solar challenge, and then you became second in the solar challenge, and then you also did the hydrogen challenge. And was it in the same year, or did you do that in like?
Yeah, so there are 2 things. The reason why we stopped 1 year with studying, the reason was that it was not possible to include that in our study program. So the universities at that time didn't see any academical benefit of doing those kind of projects in your study. So actually we had to convince our parents also, look, it's an interesting project, but we have to do our last year in 2 years actually. So today there is the 2-year master program, where, for example, the Solar Team project is one of them. So we're very glad that the University of Leuven implemented the program into their study program. And we're also very glad that actually at this moment, still the same non-profit organization, Solar Team, is actually world champion in solar car racing.
Really?
So, yeah, so Belgium is actually at this moment the best of the world in solar car racing.
Wow,
yeah,
that's really cool.
So, but that was actually the goal of, the reason why we had to stop. So we really had to show, that was the only reason to go, the only possibility to be able to go to Australia. So yeah, from there on, but then the race is in 2007, we started working on the project in the beginning of 2006. The team came together, and then you build you work more than 1 year on the car, you do the race, and then afterwards you're like, and now? So you come back to Belgium, and it's a little bit like a dark spot. You don't know what do I need to do now, and we had because we became second. We were invited in a lot of places to show the car. One of those places was the car saloon in Brussels every year. And there actually we met different people and who told us about an organization called Formula Zero. So that was in the end of 2007. We were informed that other universities were building already a car driven on hydrogen. But the race, we only had about 6 months to build the car. But we decided with a small team, we were at eight people at that moment, to also do that project. So it was a little bit a combination of our last year university together with some things we still had to do to showcase the solar car. Also, we were selecting the new team because every 2 years we select a new team to be able to see that there is enough innovation and to give other people also the chance to do a similar project as we did.
Okay. I was wondering, you said the team is today they're world champion. How quick do these cars go today? Do you know?
So it's actually interesting. What actually happens is that you get a handicap during the years because technology is evolving very fast. So what happens during the years is that you can use less solar panels, for example, because if we would still use the same rules as 10 years ago, there is a speed limit on the Stuart Highway, and cars would be driving actually all time against the speed limit because technology efficiency of the solar panels increased, batteries increased, motors became better, aerodynamics, there's more knowledge. So actually the cars became smaller, you can use less of solar panels. Actually they start looking more and more on regular cars. If you look at the pictures now of solar cars today, they look much more like normal, like a normal car.
I'm quickly gonna adjust a little bit this. Okay, let's see. All right. But that's the goal of the competition, right? To have the technology become part of the traditional industry.
Yeah. But if they wouldn't give you a handicap, then there is no more challenge because everyone is as fast as, and because now, you can use less panels. You have to sit really straight, so you have a bigger frontal area. You have more the challenge of teams racing.
Fascinating. Was it a good preparation for you to become an entrepreneur, that competition?
For me, it was the best investment in time I ever made, for sure, because I had the ability to that was actually the first time I knew why I was studying, because as an engineer you get a lot of background, a lot of know-how about technical things, but actually the why you study is really not highlighted enough. And once you come then in a project where you have a specific deadline where you really must realize something, there you see how precious actually the knowledge you have is and how fast you can develop something with the knowledge you have. And for me, that was the first time that I understood the why, that I seen the potential, what you can do with engineering by making a car. So to give you an idea, in that time, the car at 90 kilometers an hour consumed as much electricity as a vacuum cleaner at that time. So it's not
2006.
So it's not. So vacuum cleaners also consumed more at that time. You were consuming about around 1 kilowatt. Which is actually at 90 kilometers an hour. So it's incredible how low the consumption was. So and there you see, you have aerodynamics, and that's what I strongly believe. Is that I'm a big believer of we should highlight STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, also in secondary schools, but show people why. Why? Because if I tell to a cyclist, for example, that he should study STEM, he start laughing and he said, I'm not interested in maths and those kind of things. But if I tell a cyclist that by changing your sitting position on a bicycle, you can go 1, 2, maybe even 3 kilometers faster with the same power output, then he's interested. So aerodynamics, for example, can be used for that. And that's, I think, very, very important to highlight the whys.
Yeah, it was on the news this morning that the amount of STEM interested students is at the lowest point in 10 years.
Yeah.
And then they mentioned one of the things they could do is to showcase the why you would study STEM more.
Yeah, indeed. So the number of persons graduating today and also coming into industry for work with a STEM profile is really, really low. We also don't have enough girls with STEM background, so there is still a lot of potential that we don't use today. But there are a lot of studies showing the big economic added value of STEM people, but it's still often too much related with mathematics or the academic part, but the why is really not highlighted enough. And that's really something where we still have a lot of work to do. And I think Solar Team Project, for example, is one of those leading examples, actually showing what you can do with the STEM knowledge you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds very intriguing that when you're a student in Leuven and you get the opportunity to design something like that, and a year later you are in Australia racing an electric car at 90 kilometers an hour. I can imagine that's quite motivating. Yeah, it's an adventure. It's a big adventure.
Yeah.
You mentioned Lightyear. We were in a program, I think it's 5-6 years ago, back when we were developing SAM, in a European accelerator program called Climate Kick, and we needed to pitch. There was like a 2-day weekend where we needed to prepare a pitch about the concept that we had, and the Lightyear guys were part of that pitch.
Yeah.
And they were explaining to us, we are in the Eindhoven solar team, and they won something. Yeah. And we're gonna develop an electric car with solar panels on top of it, and it's going to be amazing. And I remember thinking, like, guys, you're gonna go into competition with Tesla.
Yeah.
But now it's 5-6 years later, and it's crazy to see what lately they have a bit of a rough patch.
Yeah.
But it's impressive. The entire country just got around them, and the Dutch, how many funding they got and what they were able to realize.
Yeah. Me, I also met one of the founders so I've been in Australia a couple of times with the Belgian team, and I was also in 2017 there as a race member of the Belgian solar team, where at that moment we also became third. And there you always have scrutineers and people actually following the race. So during the race, you have someone from the organization following you to see that that all the rules are followed. And I was driving the car behind the solar car with the telemetrics and the brains. We just called the brains. I was talking to the guy, the steward, who was next to me, and he was one of the founders of
Lex? No.
Yeah, I'm very bad at names actually. But,
no problem.
But it's an incredible. So what I love about the story is the fact that they have an idea. Idea sounds good. Okay, let's try it. They find funding, and I know at this moment there is they have some struggles, but it's still much better to try it and maybe fail than not to try it. So I think
absolutely
that's something we should promote more, and it's pity that failure is sometimes too much highlighted, I think, in entrepreneurship, where it's actually if you have the energy of keep on failing, you will succeed for sure, and that's statistics. So I
think that's one of the main differences between the US and Europe, and why the US is has built so much more successful companies in the last couple of decades in comparison with Europe. The company of failure, the culture of failure it's completely different. I think I could have mentioned it in a couple of previous episodes as well, but there's a club in the US, Silicon Valley, and you can only enter if you have had 3 failed startups.
Because they correlate it with experience. It's totally different.
You can't imagine something like that in Belgium. Huh?
No, but it's something what we try in all our companies also to highlight. We also have it in paintings against the wall. Is failure is a part of the process. It's better don't be afraid to fail. So it will happen eventually, but you have to learn from it and proceed. But sometimes it's the fastest way to proceed is by failure.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's a bit about the backstory then. The podcast is about mostly construction, innovation, and sustainability. And then maybe now we get to, when we get to your first company, it's solar panel focused, I can already say that, which is not like core element from construction, but it's becoming more and more the part of sustainable living. So I think that's one of the main connections. But I remember because we met each other a couple of years ago, and you told a little bit the story about how the first couple of years went of that business, and I never forgot it. So that's also one of the reasons why we invited you today, because I found, and I'm gonna let you tell the story, but I found it such a crazy. I never heard a story like that in Flanders, that it went so quickly. So maybe explain to the audience like how it went in the beginning in the first couple of years.
So we founded Futech. We were with 2 people, and then actually we also had a big network also because of the solar team. So we started getting a lot of questions about I have a big rooftop, I have a lot of electricity consumption, what can I do? And our competitor, I think we had one big advantage is we were technical guys. So after actually 3 months after starting the company, we still didn't know what an invoice was. So we were waiting customers to pay because they had a quotation and we placed it. So the price is on there. Why don't our bank number is also mentioned. So why don't you pay? Okay, you have to send an invoice just to give you an idea how. But from the technical point of view, we really knew everything about inverters, solar modules, how to do, and I think the second big benefit we had. So when I started, I was 23 years old, and when I was talking to someone about an investment, so lifetime solar panels, 25 years, I could say I'm 48 at the end of the lifetime of the solar panels. Our competitors were mainly people with a financial background that always had, and also a little bit older already. But we found really a way to use engineering and technical features to optimize your investment. So if you invest €1 more, we always guarantee at least 20 cents a year more power output, which makes your investments better. So that's where we mainly focused on industrial projects in the beginning. We grew very fast, so we were a small team because the market was growing very, very fast. And it was going very, very fast till actually 2012. 2012, the market was really disrupted, which is also because it was also a little bit an artificial market. You had like feed-in tariffs, which was so there was we call it so actually solar energy in the beginning was more expensive to make than other technologies to make electricity. And that's why the government everywhere in the world, not only in Belgium, gave a feed-in tariff to compensate the part which is inefficient to promote green energy. But solar panel prices starting to drop very fast, which made it a very, very interesting project. But we always had very deadlines that we had to respect. And then in 2012, actually, the market really dropped. So we went, I think from a turnover we had a turnover after 4 years of around 43 million euros.
Annually?
Yeah. So
see, that's what I meant. It's insane.
Yeah. And actually, the first time we had that turnover, we were around with 10 people. But that was also really our luck. So we strongly believed in the fact that we had to focus on our added value, which is engineering, procurement, and also the contracting part. But everything what had to do with labor, we searched strong partners that had good technicians where we had partnerships with. And that was very important because in 2012, when the market really dropped, our overhead was still very low. We didn't, so our competitors had 120, 130 people at that moment working in the companies. So if you don't have any work there, then it goes very fast. So 92% of the companies that were active in the solar market at those days was no longer active after 2012. So everyone really disappeared. So you only have a couple of companies that exist now more than 15 years. And for us, it was actually the best thing that ever happened at that moment because, we were starting to really focus on building solar panels. But the innovation part stopped a little bit because you were really focused on your growth. You wanted to go fast. And that's where we started working on innovation. So that's also 2012, we founded iLumen. iLumen is a company that was actually found because there were some issues with some type of solar panels.
Just sorry to interrupt, but a quick question before we switch to iLumen. 43 million euros turnover with 10 people. That's, if my math's correct, and I'm not an engineer, around 4.3 million turnover for each person. I think I'm going to speak for the audience. How? Like, just from an organizational perspective, like, how can you create that amount of turnover? How can you install that amount of panels for each person in the team?
Yeah, so I think there are different things you have to consider. In the beginning, when we started, the cost, so that was really the cost where we bought the panels from. One solar panel costed 1,000 euros.
Okay.
So if you then know that we sometimes build projects with 10,000 solar panels, it's not that. So the value of the product that we were selling was actually, so the added turnover values are very high, but if you then look at our added value actually in that part, it's very small. So we were moving something what was very expensive. And that's also the big shift, what we've seen now today, is that actually the cost of solar panels really decreased very fast, and that makes it much more interesting now.
Okay, right. Okay, and then the installation you also outsourced?
Always, yeah. So that's also the reason I think we didn't go bankrupt and others went bankrupt. If at that moment you had, we quickly focused on partnerships with companies that have a lot of labor workers that are specialized in mounting constructions. So that we could upscale very fast. So if we would sell, we can coordinate the projects, engineer them. But the work itself, the labor and also the electricians to mount the systems, they were all subcontracted at that moment. And that's also the reason we're still here, because elsewise in 2013, we would had a lot of overhead labor costs, and we wouldn't been here at this moment.
And why did the market drop so dramatically?
So electricity was very cheap. To be able there are several reasons why it happened. So the feed-in tariff started dropping. So you got, for example, at the end, in the beginning, you got 450 euros a megawatt hour for the electricity you produced. At the end, it was 210 euros a megawatt hour, and then it stopped. So you got it for 20 years. And people always that's typically something. You have two kind of people. You have people that look at, if you have an investment you can do today, is it interesting or not, and you do it or you don't. But you also have a group of people that always look back and they say, yeah, but it used to be more interesting with the higher. So afterwards, there was a big so you really went from payback times from 6 years, 7 years to payback times of 12, 13 years, what was for a lot of people too long. They also reflected too much to the period, when it was much. So the people had really the feeling that they missed the train, that it was no longer interesting, and that's the reason why it dropped very fast, and also the combination of electricity prices. So the electricity price was very low at that moment. So the payback time was actually quite long, and people look at payback time. So that's a fact.
What is it today? Payback time of a solar installation?
Realistically, you're around 5-6 years payback time. Yeah.
Still, that's again very good.
Yeah, of course. But it's always been. It's one of the. I don't know another product in construction because it's a construction material actually. Where you talk about payback time. So solar panels is actually something which is been sold since the beginning already as an investment, which is actually strange, because if you go and isolate your house, you will not say, if I put isolation, I will have a payback time. No, everyone isolates today his house. Because you have higher performance, higher comfort, and also you reduce the cost. And I think that's a big shift of what we see today, 15 years later, is people are less looking at really the payback time of solar panel, but more looking at, for example, if I produce my electricity today with solar panels, for example, together with a battery, I'm able to be 70% of the time independent of the grid. So I can make my own electricity, which is green. And actually, at 70% of the time, my cost of electricity will be around 120 euros a megawatt hour, compared with the grid cost of 350, 400 euros a megawatt hour. So they will more look at what we call the levelized cost of energy. So and the big benefit of solar panels is, you have a high capex, so you have to invest in it, but you don't have any opex. So the operational costs to maintain it are very low. And that's also why we combine. That's also something we've been doing since 2011, because we already knew that the market was really going to drop. So we started. A lot of people didn't get any fundings to be able to put solar panels on the rooftop, so they didn't get any loans. Also, residentials didn't have the possibility to invest at that moment in expensive installation. What we start doing is energy as a service. So we installed for free solar panels on the rooftops. And then you get immediately actually your electricity at around 15 cents a kilowatt hour, which is half of the electricity price. And the unique part is that we don't indexate the electricity price. So people who have been renting solar panels from us, they are still, so for example, in 2011, they're already 12 years paying the same amount monthly, not indexated. And why do we do that? Really to showcase, we know what your cost will be in 10 years. Which other technology can provide you? You cannot sign a contract today with an energy supplier who, with a fixed price of 11 years. So that's not possible. But with solar energy, it's possible. So it's more than payback time. It's really levelized cost of energy, long-term horizon, independency, and green energy, which is more and more a topic.
Yeah, when you explain it like that, it makes it a very, very easy decision for the client.
Yeah,
especially after what happened in the last 18 to 24 months. The certainty of that's going to be the amount you pay, I can imagine that's incredibly important today. Also, and then we're going to continue with the entrepreneurial progress. We also need to look a bit. We need to keep an eye on time. I was listening to a podcast last week from Rutger Bregman, and he was explaining that he saw something. He and his colleagues saw something that made them incredibly optimistic about the future, and it was the amount of solar that's gonna come online production-wise in the next 3 to 5 years. And they were saying figures, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but like in 2025, I think he mentioned that they will have the amount of solar capacity produced annually that's today installed globally. So every year, the same amount of electricity of photovoltaic panels will come online that's already installed today globally. So like the figures were insane, and that they were saying like we're going to go to an environment where energy is going to become so cheap that it's going to solve a whole lot of societal issues. I don't know if you have an opinion about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the big difference is that in the beginning of the energy transition, we were focusing on how can we get kilowatt hours. So how can we get energy from the sun? So if you look at actually a residential household is a perfect example. A typical household consumes about 4 megawatt hours a year, and they would go and buy a solar system which produces 4 megawatt hours a year. And actually at the end would say, yeah, now I'm energy neutral. But yeah, in real life, only about 30% of the electricity that's produced from the solar cells goes directly to the household. 70%, for example, in the summer, there's too much. First goes to the grid, and then afterwards you pay it back. Since now, and it's an evolution that's happening everywhere, we will more and more go to dynamic prices. So you will have every hour, you will have a different tariff. So the price of an electron of a kilowatt hour will depend on the hour you consume it, which is actually logical because, yeah, you have hours where the demand is very high, you have hours where the demand is very low. And those two evolutions actually really push people not to... So in the beginning, they would say, yeah, but I will not buy more solar panels because I want my self-consumption, so the part that the piece of electricity that goes directly from my solar panels to my household to be as high as possible. But then, yeah, the smaller your installation, actually, the more percentage goes to. Now people start to talk about self-independency. So they say, yeah, but if I install an installation that doesn't give me 4 megawatt hours a year, but maybe 8 megawatt hours a year, in the summer I have too much, I know that. But I can even, in the months November, maybe even December, I will have maybe enough electricity for one day to provide my whole household, together with a battery. So the capex is higher, but I can use 70-80% of the electricity. I'm independent, I can make it for myself. And that's actually the evolution. What's happening is that, yeah, the hours where there is not enough electricity available, the electricity is very expensive. So people start also buying bigger installations and start thinking about not self-consumption, but self-foreseen, to foresee themselves with electricity. And yeah, it's really... what happened, the biggest disruption, what happened last year with the electricity prices, which went up very high. That was also really a wake-up call. People started thinking about, okay, what can we do? And if you make all... And why did it take so long for a lot of people to see that solar electricity price is not only ecological, very interesting, but also economical? Yeah, there are not a lot of investments we do where we look at a longer period than 5 till 10 years to look at the payback time. But the lifetime of a solar panel today is really more than 30 years. So if you look at the levelized cost of energy, you have to look at the lifetime, the real lifetime. And if you consider the lifetime of a solar panel, is the cheapest kilowatt hour, even in Belgium, the cheapest kilowatt hour you can produce. But yeah, you have to consider that at some moments you will have a lot of it, and at some moments you will have none. But there you see other technologies merging, like electrical vehicles, but also battery systems, vehicle-to-grid technology to really be able to shift those electricity so that you have it at the right moment. Yeah.
Fascinating.
And also, what's also very interesting there is because of the drop of the cost of solar panels, we already do together with some partners, some projects now where we actually use solar panels as a construction material in a wall. So it's a black wall. You don't see that it's a solar panel, but we integrate solar cells in the wall. And with the low prices of the solar cells, it's actually a construction material. In the construction, we typically talk about euros a square meter. If you use solar panels there, actually it's a very competitive building material. But the interesting thing is also because of your walls that are vertical, normally on a year base, they would not produce a lot of electricity. But if you have an east wall or a west wall, in the morning you get a lot of sun because your sun is still very low, and also in the evening. And that's typically also where the prices of the electricity are very high. So on a year base, those walls don't generate a lot of electricity, but they generate it at the most valuable times. So you really get construction materials with a payback time, and that's really unique. And we do those projects, for example, where we do the investment, the additional cost of the wall to integrate solar panels, we take it into account, and then we deliver electricity, energy as a service to those customers, so that you have EPB neutral buildings, you have green electricity, you're independent, and it's really interesting what's happening actually at this moment in the energy transition.
Yeah, it makes one dream. That's really the feeling I got when I was listening to it last week, and when I hear you explain it as well. Like, there is a perfectly reasonable scenario to make that in 10 years, I'm no expert there, but that we are gonna be in an environment where the cost of electricity is gonna be, free is a big word, but so low that, like, climate change, like, because if electricity is so low, carbon capture becomes possible. You have water problems, you just get water from the ocean and you make it desalinated with electricity. Like, so many of the issues we now look at and think they are insurmountable, when electricity becomes so cheap, basically almost everything becomes possible from a technological perspective. So that's, and it's something that I have a feeling it's not getting talked, like the dropping trend of those solar panels. That's like one of the biggest things happening today from a technological perspective, and it does not get a lot of airtime.
No, indeed. But it's I think I've been doing this now for 15 years, and it's for sure the most interesting period in my career at this moment. And it's really because of the time shift and the difference in electricity prices during the day. So you have periods where the electricity price is negative. So it means you get money if you consume electricity. And other moments it's very expensive. But I'm a strongly believer that it will be a mix of different technologies, but solar will for sure be a big part of it. Together with some battery technology, but also electrical vehicles. If you look at the typical consumption of a household is around 10 kilowatt hours a day, but a typical battery of an electrical vehicle is around 80 kilowatt hours. So you have enough energy stored in your electrical vehicles for 8 days. And if you can then start to use that asset, your car is an asset, bidirectionally, so that when it's connected to the grid, you can support the grid and buy electricity when it's very cheap and inject electricity. Those are products where we work on very hard within iLumen, and they're very disruptive because you don't have any capex. The car, you have it already, but you're gonna use it in a smart way to see that your total cost of living really decreases. So it's really very interesting period what's happening now.
Yeah, you mentioned iLumen, maybe because we did a little sidetrack now into the the solar energy market, but you mentioned iLumen now twice already. So you started with Futech, and then afterwards you started iLumen, and that company. Maybe explain a little bit more what that
So
does.
iLumen is actually founded because of the reason, in those days, 2007, 2008, solar panels, they already existed for more than 20 years, but not on a large scale. So you see a new market, new manufacturers arising, warranties 25 years, but we as a supplier, Futech, we have to take the warranty responsibility if something happens with the manufacturer. So iLumen really started focusing on how can we be sure that during the lifetime we extend the lifetime and we increase the yield, so that actually the solar panels stay as performant as possible. And that's one of the reasons why solar panels lose efficiency is called potential induced degradation, PID. And actually, we found a way with that was the first product we developed. We found a way to reverse that effect. So that's what we call the PID box, PID box, so that you can really increase the power output of existing solar panels. You add a technology, and it's an electronic device, and it increases the yield. But today, we mainly we are more and more focusing with iLumen on energy management systems. Battery systems, electrical vehicle chargers, bidirectional chargers, and also heat management. So there is a lot of energy going to, for example, electrical boilers or heat pump boilers. There is so warm water has a lot of energy actually in it, and we also have technology that when the electricity is cheap or you have an excess of solar energy, you can you keep your water, for example, at 50 degrees, your sanitary water, but when there is excess of energy, you can go till 70 degrees, so that during the evening when you take a shower, your boiler doesn't have to heat up. So actually you use your boiler as a battery, but it is a cheap battery. So those kind of technologies actually to be able to match so that you consume as much as possible of the electricity from your solar panels or cheap electricity directly, so that it doesn't first have to go to the grid and back. Because the big cost, if we can avoid a lot of adjustments on our grid, that has really a major impact on our total cost, what we pay for electricity. So like you said already, the electron itself, the kilowatt hours, will be cheap to produce for sure in the future. But it's we have to find ways to be able to match the consumption with the production, and as cheap as possible. And their technology is a great solution, and that's what we try to focus on with iLumen. Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah, I think we could expand onto what all those different solutions are today, but maybe with time in mind, that's going to take us a little bit too far. Maybe we can ever do a round two, and because there's also a whole investor, but you're also an investor in a couple of...
The investor is not the word actually.
Okay.
I like to use most, so it's not that we really invest in as an investor. What we do is we've seen that during the last 10 years, the market has shifted. Is really totally different from a product market where, for example, we sell solar panels as a product. Customers want a solution, but the solution is multi-technic. So you have solar panels, you have batteries, electrical vehicles, and heat pumps. Those are actually our main activities. What we do, what we strongly believe as a group of companies is that it's better as a company itself to focus on one thing and to accelerate in one thing than to be average in 10 things. So a one-stop shop as a company we don't believe in, but we need the other technologies. We need heat pumps to be able to deliver to our customers, so that the heat pumps, when their electricity price is cheap, that they maximize electricity output, and when it's expensive, we can turn them off. So it all has to be connected with an energy management system. That's why we do two things. So we invest in companies that that are needed in our energy transition, so that they are part of the family. So it's really an addition to the group because we need them. So we also strongly believe that alone often you go faster, but together you go much further. So that's why we search for an ecosystem of different companies where that will always have a part of technology with where we think that in the future it will for sure change how our market looks today. So we have different companies in the group, for example, also modular building solutions. Today we think that in 10 years how we will construct houses will be different than today. Then it's very important as a solar panel installer or as a heat pump installer that you also have in your group a company that is today leading in how you build houses, because it will have an impact on how we install solar panels if the houses are. So that's always the reason we search for companies in our group that reinforce us and we reinforce them. It's really because we really think that 1 and 1 is 3. And so it's not really like, we just want to invest. We want to create an ecosystem of companies that reinforce themselves to be able to accelerate and go faster in the energy transition.
The goal is to increase the speed of the energy transition.
By technology.
Very similar as Tesla, actually.
Probably. Yeah. So we use, for us, the main driver is technology. We think that technology is really the solution. We think that the energy transition will only give more comfort. So we don't believe in the stories that we have to keep our comfort lower. We think that technology can solve everything, so that the comfort is at least higher actually than today in the energy transition. And that's why we create, so our group is called U2P, so because we really believe in U2P as maybe it's reality. So that the energy transition, it's too complex to do it alone. And that's why we are building a family of companies that all have their expertise. And we also have a company that does, for example, second life batteries. So batteries that come back from electrical vehicles, they manufacture it for stationary applications. Why? So also the whole material supplies second life is something we strongly believe in.
Sounds so interesting, but as I said, maybe we should keep that for a round 2 that potentially could come in the future, because we haven't even talked about all the other applications in the group or what you learned by building this group. So there's definitely enough to do a second edition, but maybe what we try to do when we come to the end of an episode is to ask a couple more broad questions. And one of them, for example, is if you could have a drink with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be?
Maybe it's not. It's an answer you would expect, but for me it would be Elon Musk. Because and not on. What I find interesting is the way he just always says, "I think it's possible. Let's do it." You can argue about a lot of things that he does, but the way he changes the world and shakes the world and keeps on doing that, it's really interesting to see.
It's inspiring.
For sure. For sure.
And then there's also another part, because you're also a triathlete, right? So we also have a question like, if you had to do a job that has nothing to do with what you're doing right now, what would it be? Maybe that's related to that, or?
I think if I would do a job today, and I think it would be teacher.
Okay.
I think teacher is a job which is undervalued. I think it's one of the most important things. Everyone in his career has a teacher that you remind yourself and says, okay, because he did that it changed me a little bit. So I think if we have the right teachers in place, it can have on a long term really a big impact. Passionate teachers. And it can be two ways. So maybe I would be a sport teacher then with my triathlon background, but also in STEM, you can do a lot of things with. I think teacher. I would be a teacher. I think.
All right, awesome. And then maybe finally, is there a certain book you would advise to our audience to read that has inspired you?
I don't read a lot of books. I think the most interesting book I've read lately was actually Reinventing Organizations. I don't know if you know it.
No.
It's a very interesting book which shows that a different level of leaderships and how you can actually build companies, how you can get responsibility in a bottom-up company, so in a flat structured company. So Reinventing Organization was a very interesting book.
All right, wonderful. Then there's nothing left but to thank you very much for your time, Ismaël. I found it a very, very interesting conversation. I think we could have continued going for a while. But no, I wish you the best of luck. I think it's extremely impressive what you've already built. And hopefully we can talk again in the future, because I think the audience would appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Bao Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe to our channel. If you're interested in Bao Living in our Smart Adaptable Module or SAM, go check out our website baoliving.com. If you want to stay up to date, you can best subscribe to our monthly newsletter on our website or follow us on all social media platforms where we're named @BaoLiving.